Tomorrow, a list of local and international leaders will converge at the Sandton Convention Centre to attend this year's second annual Brand Africa Forum. The forum will tackle key issues affecting Africa's growth, reputation and competitiveness. It will also provide a unique opportunity for Pan-African decision makers in media, business, nation branding and civil society to interact and engage with topics and opportunities that are catalytic to the future of Africa, as well as explore lessons from emerging markets such as India. To tell us more about Brand Africa, we are joined in studio by Thebe Ikalafeng, who is the founder of Brand Africa, and Miller Matola from International Marketing Council of South Africa. Gentlemen, good to have you in studio. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you for having us.
Thebe, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the work that Brand Africa does in its mandate.
Well, Brand Africa is an initiative that was started last year on the back of the 2010 World Cup, really to try and look at what gains Africa is making as far as its reputation and image is concerned in the world, but also in terms of how we are growing and how we are developing the continent to be competitive. But it's a forum for decision makers to get together and say, what are those issues, what are those opportunities that us as Africans can look at for Africa together.
And Miller, why get involved from your side?
Well, Leon, from Brand South Africa's point of view, it is important that we have a strong Brand Africa or strong nation brands on the continent, because invariably it means that we as a nation can fare better. And that helps us actually to combat the stereotype of African nation brands being simply one homogeneous entity. And to that effect, it is important that we as Brand South Africa get involved, because it is in our interest.
How do we define it? And I was asking you gentlemen off air, how do we define Africa as a brand?
Well, how do we define it ideally, or how do you find it as it is today? But I think in general one could say that defining the brand of any entity and as the continent as well is, so what is the cumulative reputation, the image, perceptions that anybody else inside and outside of the continent has of the continent. That's perhaps how you can define it broadly. But how people see it is a different story right now. How people see us, obviously we're coming from the back of perception that we are a begging continent, with a continent that's dependent on aid, a continent that is slow-moving, that's not decisive. But where we are headed where the continent is going. We're a continent that in many parts of the continent, like Ghana, is growing at 11%, a continent of 900 million Africans who are spending 2 trillion. So that we're a continent now that speaks of opportunity, a continent that speaks of positive growth into the future.
What did the World Cup do for us? It's a question that we asked during the World Cup. I know we've asked it after the World Cup, but when we talk about, Africa having this reputation of, cap in hand, walking, begging around, but did the World Cup change that perception at all?
Yeah, the World Cup actually did change that perception. One of the things that the World Cup really did for South Africa is to change the stereotype and this notion of Africa, as Thebe said, as a continent that really relies on aid and all the negatives that tended to be associated with the continent. In fact, after the World Cup, you found that more than a third of people who make decisions around investment were now looking at South Africa and the continent differently. And I think that was made even better still by the McKinsey report, which indicated that Africa is the next growth frontier. Yeah,
well, we can only hope so, and hope that we get more and more investment coming in here, because we do have so much to offer. We really do. It's just letting the world know. Something exciting that's going to be happening as well is that the continent's most valued brands will be revealed at the inaugural Brand Africa 100 Awards. How do you go about selecting this?
Well, quite a task.
I can imagine.
Quite a difficult task, but an exciting one. Yeah. If you look at all the tests around the world, or all the surveys around the world, whether it's Interbrand, whether it's Millwood brands, all of them are the top 100s. None of the brands that they always reveal are African. So we said, maybe we need to look at Africa itself and look at the brands which are operating here, whether they're international or global. The process that we did for this year, the inaugural year, is to look at 9 markets, and we did the valuation in two steps. The first step was to go to consumers in the key markets in every region in sub-Saharan Africa, and we went to the consumers and asked them to rate the brands which they admire on a range of attributes, admire and they trust in the continent. And then the second, and that survey which was done by TNS Global. What we then did, we then went to Brand Finance PLC in London, and we said to them, take those brands which are admired by African consumers and put a ranking on them. And we came up with and then we re-rated all the brands now from top one to from the top to 100. And so on. So tomorrow night we'll reveal that at 6:30 in the evening. There's going to be a lot of surprises. There's going to be a lot of tears, but I think there's going to be a lot of excitement in Africa, because we're going to see that for the first time that there is that potential in Africa. That Africa does have great brands which are created in this continent.
Fantastic. I look forward to hearing who they are. Just Miller, South Africa is always in a very sensitive position, because even we were talking about this off air. You don't want to come across as the bully of Africa, and that we always seem to be charging ahead and leading these things to the rest of Africa. What role do you fulfill in this brand Africa as coming in from the Marketing Council of South Africa?
Well, Leanne, part of the role that we fulfill is really to try and share some of the insights that we as a country have had over the years in developing a nation brand, and to ensure that all the other countries on the continent can also build their nation brands. But I think with respect to the point that Thebe has made, it's interesting to note that about 25% of the brands amongst those that have been listed are actually South African brands, which just goes to attest to the fact that South African brands are leading on the continent, and they are helping to build and shape the reputation of not only South Africa, but the continent as well.
Well, I cannot wait to hear who the list is, and good luck with all of this. I mean, I'm reading some of the people that are going to be addressing it, who are going to be in attendance from all over the continent and the world, and it looks like a very successful conference on paper, and I hope it's a successful thing when you guys put it off. Thebe, thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Miller,
Leanne.
thank you for being with us, and good luck. All right, time now is 5 minutes before 7 here on Morning Live. Let's get you a weather update. When we return, it'll be the news at 7. Stay tuned.